Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast. My name is Nathan Sutherland, and this podcast is dedicated to helping families love God and use tech. Today, we are jumping into a conversation on AI. I am excited for this conversation because it's both progressing from where we have been discussing, and it picks up with the news. So recently, there's a very famous lawyer named Neil Katyal, and he recently had a tweet. Because I can't call them an X. I just won't. So, had a tweet where let me just read a little bit of it for you. He argued the tariffs case, is very excited the tariffs case won, and I'll read you portions. And as of the time of Wednesday night of this past week, this had 1.4 million views. 5 months ago, I argued before the president's $4 trillion tariffs at the Supreme Court. In 237 years, the court has never struck down a sitting president's signature initiative. Legal scholars said it was impossible. Some of my own colleagues said it was impossible. We won 6-3. He goes on to talk about, I had a mindset coach, an improv coach, a meditation coach, and Harvey. Harvey predicted many of the questions, was brilliant, tireless, occasionally insufferable. Here's the catch. Harvey isn't a person. It goes down to say, tomorrow TED, the talk forum, releases my talk about what really happened and what I learned standing at the podium. AI can predict, AI can analyze. What AI cannot do is what actually won the argument. Connect, read the room, hear the justice's words. So go find yours, go deeper in this age. That's where your edge lives, is the human edge. So he posts this tweet about how awesome he did and how AI was his superpower that got him there. The actual TED Talk itself, which by the way, this was like lambasted as on so many levels of like, what are you doing? Like, we get it. You're very smart. You're very good. Congratulations. But what TED Talk, which you should actually watch, is much more interesting than that tweet. The TED Talk basically comes down to, hey, AI levels the playing field for everyone. And as someone who's experienced a lot of academic success, Mr. Katyal is attempting to say, like, yes, I'm good in front of people and that's my strength. And like, that's what I play to. And like AI helped me get this. And it's actually very interesting. The quote I like the most from this presentation, and it really needs to be referenced because otherwise we can just make fun of this really random situation. But he says, now this is bigger than just law. It's about all of us. For centuries, the expert was the person who read the most, who remembered the most, and who'd seen the most. The seasoned doctor, the experienced lawyer. Their edge was accumulated knowledge. AI is making that edge nearly worthless, not because humans no longer matter, but because the particular advantage, pattern recognition across vast data and breadth of knowledge, is now available to anyone. And that, I believe, for us is the takeaway. So if you've heard about this Neil Katyal thing, or you have any strong takes on it, like, that's great. But the point for us as parents and for followers of Christ and for individuals living in an AI environment, to the extent that we even understand what that means, Mr. Katyal's point is huge. This has leveled the playing field. I mean, if you think about it, like, it doesn't take away the human element. There still needs to be a person to apply that info, but this is the next step for us growing up with Google. And if we just wanted to know a fact, we could just Google it. Like, oh, I don't remember that. Google it. If I can't remember a Bible verse, I can type in the phrase. If I don't remember the phrase, I can give it the context. Like, what did Jesus say about seeds while talking to a large crowd? Like, and it'll give me the 7 instances of that. Like, it is just a more advanced version of a skill we've had, right? You could always go to some kind of biblical study tool and you could look up keywords. And sometimes one in the back of your Bible would have 5 instances, but you could find a bigger one and it would have 50. And Google just gives you all of that at your fingertips. Now, is that bad for human understanding? Yes, it's terrible because the time it took you and the intentionality required to go find those books were an important part of being deliberate. And this has leveled the playing field. So someone without the time, so that someone who's a stay-at-home parent with kids at their ankles can still get that info quickly and move on with their reference or their study or their sharing or their encouragement or their personal reflection. Like, they can do that because it's leveled the playing field. No longer do you have to have these tomes stashed in a back corner or have access to a library that has them or have the time to flip through them and store them. Like, it's leveled playing field. Similarly, our children no longer need and hear me out to the end of this thought. They no longer need the ability to write a 5-paragraph essay on their own. Not because it's not an important skill, but because they have a very capable tool that will do that product for them. But the downside is very similar. They actually don't know what they know and they don't know. Very similar to us, if we can just look up a Bible verse when we want it, there's a chance that we don't actually know that Bible verse. We remember there was a reference there, but we may not know that verse. And if we don't have it in our hearts, it does get more difficult to apply it and to reference it and to make sure it was done accurately because we need to know some of that context. You get no context when Google pulls you up a verse. It's just that verse, sometimes in a list of other verses related to the topic you searched. So now we're missing out. And actually today's verse will be an example of that, of like, ooh, the context matters. Sorry, I didn't mean to tease a Bible verse, but that context does matter. And we lose that. Similarly, when our children write a paper with an internet assistant, say ChatGPT, yes, they get a good product, but did they produce the product? Like maybe they did that fully knowingly. They just don't have the time and they just need a little support. Okay. Maybe they just prompted the AI, went and changed some words so it looks more like they did it, and they don't actually have the ability to synthesize the ideas, and they may not even know that yet. They just know, I know how to do this, and every time someone asks me to do it, I'm going to come back here and do it again. And there is a concern of a loss of skill. So then we have Mr. Cutiel, who's like, I used AI, and it's leveled the playing field. That doesn't mean the product always gets better. It means a very smart person who's incredibly capable at his job already has said, whoa, AI is really good at noting data over massive sums of space. In fact, he goes on to say this. He's named this AI Harvey. They custom built it for this particular case. And he goes over 25 years of court, everything basically went before the Supreme Court, and then asked the AI, hey, here's what we're arguing on. Here's kind of my talking points. What should I expect? And it went justice by justice and said, this one's going to be concerned about this stuff, this one, and was able to predict. He even goes through and predicts, like, here's what Harvey said this particular justice would say. Here was her response. And it's almost verbatim. And that, right? Like that is something a person could have done by reviewing 25, like that's a doctoral degree to go over 25 years of Supreme Court on a specific topic and then start writing out, this is the way each of the 9 justices would respond. But an AI is really, a large language model is really good at that. Like that is what its superpower is. So give that to someone who's already capable, already smart, already has the relationships, already understands how he wants to handle this case. Okay, like that's going to be a powerful resource. So yes, it's around. Humans are going to use it. Think about where it's an ethical way to use this. And again, this is, as his words, bespoke. This is a custom AI, so it's not publicly available data. He's not losing his personal edge on this. He's not all those things. This individual is also a very prickly person, loves himself some attention. So he goes on and does things like this tweet that has gotten him, it's gotten him lots of attention. If there is truly no bad publicity, then he must be very happy with it. But our point for this is AI is out. It's in the classroom. It's in our jobs. And I actually want to focus a little bit on how AI is trained, because this is something that I think we need to just be a little more aware of what actually is happening. And I want to take us on a little bit of a journey to get there. So this AI case where it showed up in the Supreme Court and was used effectively by an individual who says this is a major deal, does an 18-minute TED Talk, and his takeaway is the playing field is now leveled. Actually, before I go into training, let's talk about that. Playing field is leveled. Anyone can make a Monet art just by typing it in. You can go see this for yourself. A Mid-Journey, for example, would be capable of doing that. You give it words, it gives you pictures. Anyone now can design music. Sons of Glory is available on Spotify, and it's a Christian heavy metal band that sings just the Psalms, and it's an AI band. There is no actual singer. It's not modifying someone's voice. Someone went in and prompted it and said, use this kind of instrument, sound like this, here's your lyrics, and go, and it made these heavy metal songs that are verbatim the first 8 Psalms of the Bible with ridiculous guitar riffs and drum part. Like, very talented. You'd have to be very talented to recreate this, but it's all AI. So anyone now has access to incredible music production, to incredible art capabilities, to very nefarious opportunities, to essay writing, to massive levels of research and data recognition. We all have the ability. Do you still need a sharp mind behind it to say, was this worth creating? Yeah. And you still need a conscience, and you still need to be ethical. And the ability is now there. So that's important, because how did we get this ability?
Parents, as we strive to raise kids who love God and use tech, it's intimidating to look at this next stage of life and think about what academics may look like for them. When you're thinking about college, consider George Fox University for your children because of 3 things. First, it's going to give you a more intimate, known environment where they have a focus on being known personally, academically, and spiritually. Your child will grow in their faith. 93% of undergrad students at George Fox last year said that being at George Fox has helped them grow in their relationship with Jesus. We also want them to grow academically, which means being a part of a university with rigorous academic standards and opportunities to be engaged. They have a nationally recognized engineering, nursing, and education programs, as well as chances to study abroad here within the U.S. and then internationally. And finally, personally, to be part of a vibrant campus atmosphere where you can play intramural sports or part of their NCAA Division III athletic programs with 23 sports available. Go to a place that's going to support your goals, not try to make you support theirs. To have that goal be to raise you up to be all God's called you to be, and to truly equip your young person to love God, and then from their love of God to go wherever God has called them. And that includes being equipped with a degree that'll help them do that, to be missionally equipped to love and serve others, to lead where God has planted them, and to know the gospel for themselves and be able to share it with others. So George Fox University is an amazing resource for our kids, for our community here in the Northwest, and for anyone who's looking to raise up a young person who can love God and from that, love others.
I want to take just a look at OpenAI and then Anthropic. OpenAI, if you go back to 2018, they had spent a long time creating something that could play a video game. So in 2018, I actually don't even know the name. I'm assuming it was the OpenAI 4, because the next year it's OpenAI 5, but I actually don't have the name of what the product was. They picked a game called Dota. And all you really need to know about this, it's a video game. All you really need to know about this video game is there's 5 players on a team, and their job is to march across this map and defeat the other team's main tower. In the middle, there's little mini towers. There's, dozens and dozens of different heroes you can pick from. Every hero has special abilities and ways to support the other heroes, or to lead with superpowers that they need the support of other heroes. So it's very complex. So, just imagine chess, but if you can change your queen out for a different character, that's super strong, right? But now there's 5 people playing chess on each team, and you can get items and levels and points, and it's this whole thing. But the whole point is you can go to the top side of the map, the middle of the map, or the bottom of the map, and there's 5 of you, and you need to figure out how to defeat the other team. So with that as its premise, it has become very popular. Dota is the name of the game, Dota 2 specifically. And these tournaments are huge. There's a $20 million prize purse at one of these tournaments, meaning you could win $20 million. Actually, I think you win 12 if you take first. Forgive me if that's not true. So the International is one of the 2 large ones. 2018, this OpenAI team has trained a computer to go play in this tournament. And the way that works is, because I was like, that seems like cheating. It runs off the exact same premise a player would run off. So it controls each hero. And as the heroes move around, it gets field of vision. It can only see what that player can see. And then it can react to that. And the way they did that is they said, great, play this game for a really long time, and then we'll give you feedback. And it doesn't have to use real world time because it's a supercomputer. So it's just like in the show, The Flash, where if you're moving at the speed of light, everyone else looks like they're frozen in place. The computer does the same thing. So it can play 1,000 hours in a few minutes. And so it plays its thousands of hours, and it's finished, or let's say in a day. plays 1,000 hours. At the end of a day, they go back through and they said, this was good, that was bad. And they give it very specific feedback. When you were this hero and you did that thing, that was good. So they have pro players now giving analog inputs and saying yes, no, and building this flowchart of decisions. And it trains and it trains and it trains. And they ended up training it for 10,000 days was the amount of in-game time the computer had. It took them 3 months to get that. So obviously they didn't wait 10,000 days. But the computer was able to get just tons and tons and tons of reps because it has tons of processing power. They eventually end up with the train model. It goes to the 2018 Dota 2 tournament and it gets smoked by the pro team. They go back to make OpenAI 5, and 2019 they show up at the other major Dota 2 tournament. At this point, they have trained it for 3 months. They have put 45,000 days worth of playtime into it, and it comes back significantly stronger. It even does a little trash talking, which I appreciate. Doesn't matter for our greater conversation, but it notices like, oh, people seem to trash talk to try to make their opponents upset. And so it does. At one point, about 5 minutes in, it's like, I predict a 90% win ratio. And sure enough, it absolutely trounces the pro team twice. It wins 2-0. That was an incredible amount of input, and OpenAI's kind of reflections on this as a company is the same thing. Like, yes, it did something very complicated. Yes, that was a milestone for us. And OpenAI 5 took so much manual feedback and so much intensive time that it wouldn't be practical in real world solutions because it would take too much to tell it, yes, that was good info. No, that was bad info. So then we jump forward and we get our 2022 OpenAI products that lead us to a 2023 ChatGPT and kind of the advent of AI as we think of it. Blast super forward then to 2026. End of 2025, actually. Amazon announces, hey, we've got a warehouse in Michigan. It's 1,200 acres. So for context, that would be if you walked in a straight line for 40 minutes, you would walk from one corner all the way to the next corner of this warehouse. That is 1.8 miles square is what 1,200 acres is. Then you could take a 90-degree left, you'd walk for another 40 minutes, and you've now walked half of the building. You've ended up on the far corner of that building. So it took you 80 minutes just to walk the span of 2 walls. And they say, we have 1,200 acres. It's filled with servers, and these servers are filled with our Trainium 2 chip. So Trainium 2, this does matter. Trainium 2 is a chip that is very good at processing data. It's incredibly efficient at it. And part of that comes from just the way it's designed. So we gauge processing speed in flops, all caps, flops. And it's basically how many processes can this run in a second. So my computer, I have an M3 processor in a MacBook Pro. This can run a max of 5 teraflops at its max peak. So that would be, a teraflop would be a 10 with 12 zeros after it. So basically it can run 5 trillion 01s in a second. And that comes thanks to teeny tiny little transistors that allow it to process an incredible amount of data. When I was growing up, I remember very vividly when the first dual core processor came out, meaning my chipset has two processing cores, but it can run more data now because at some point there was a dual thread for a while anyway, or quad thread. There was the ability to get it to do more. Well, we don't have dual cores or even quad cores. My processor has 14 cores in it, and it can run 5 teraflops. So 5 times 10 to the 12th, right? Like that's a lot. That's a whole lot of numbers, and that's a lot of processing power. So a Trainium 2 can run 20 petaflops. So for our purposes, that's just 4,000 times more processing in a second. That's one chip. Those chips are set into racks. Those racks are set into server racks, and those server racks are put into a 1,200-acre facility. That's important because Anthropic is an AI company we've talked about before. They have a product called Claude. Claude is this large language model. It is different from this AI that was trained to play this video game that now seems archaic because instead of having to say yes, no in some kind of flow chart for the AI, you simply give it a prompt. You say, Claude, here's what we want you to do. And in order to train it, you do something very similar. If you want Claude to get good at something, you give it a very complex set of prompts, and then you give it food. Right? You give it energy and electricity in this case, and you give it data, and you let this thing just go nuts. So they did this. They took Claude and they had made Opus, and they're very proud of Opus, and they said, this is a great thing. Opus 4.6 is a big deal. We are now going to make a new version of Claude, and we're going to call it Mythos. And so they give it its training time in this. So they started with 500,000 of these Trainium 2 chips. So just run that. If one of these chips is 4,000 MacBook Pro M3 processors, we have 500,000 of these things. And then by the end of 2025, they upgraded to 1 million of these. So we are going to use 1 million of these. just hear the scale. We're going to use 1 million of these, and we're going to use them for months, and we're going to let Claude train himself or itself. I should not personalize it. Please don't do that. That was a slip up. And at this point, I just want to kind of I want to leave that here, that this idea that we have this massive AI that is going to be training itself using a huge amount of computing power, we're just going to wrap up the conversation right there, because otherwise it will expand to a massive conversation. And I want to make sure I can put a bow on the second part. So far what we know is that AI is being used in the real world. That Neil Keptial this last week was like, I made a bespoke AI and it's amazing. And not only am I amazing, but my AI is the wave of the future. And that this is true for our children, that we want to make sure that we recognize that this is the way their world is going to be working. So let's do it with integrity. Let's do it with creativity. Let's do it with a conscience, both in how we make these things, as we'll talk about next week, and how we use them afterwards. This conversation is bigger than any single individual or even a single company's product, but I'm using these as specific. So we're just noting that back in 2017, OpenAI was making a product that in 2018 lost a video game tournament and 2019 won it. That currently we have products that aren't even trained by poking. They're being trained by these massive facilities, which we'll get into next week. And our takeaway from this for this week is a deliberate focus on not gaining the world and losing our souls. Jesus says in Mark that the premise of following him is to die to ourselves and to follow him. He talks about being ashamed, as we'll cover next week. But the shame is not, I'm scared to mention him. The shame is, I don't like God's plans. It's the shame that Judas felt. It's the shame that Peter used to rebuke Jesus and say, no, you're not going to die. You're going to be amazing. We're all going to win. And he's like, yeah, no, we should probably set on that for a minute, Peter, because that's not actually the plan. And therefore, you're fighting God's will. Let's not use AI to fight God's will. Let's use AI to do God's will. And so, yes, we'll get more into this training. We'll look at Mythos and what that could mean for the future, because y'all's like, we should all use AI at all the times. And maybe, all right. But we also need to be deliberate about, is this the time to use this resource? Or is this a time to see that what God's calling us to is hard, and it may not be the kind of thing we solve with AI. It might be the kind of thing we deliberately step into, because people are needed who carry the Spirit of God as jars of clay. And when God breaks us, he spills out, not bits and blips from an AI. So with that in mind, I hope this was encouraging. I hope you join us next week as we continue this conversation about AI, used at a high level, used by our children, used in the classroom, used in our daily lives, and what this looks like both on the production side, but then on the use side, how we can make sure we use it well to look more like Jesus and not distract us from it. Hope this is encouraging for you. If you have any questions, reach out nathan@gospeltech.net, and I look forward to joining you next week for this conversation about how we can love God and use tech. I'll talk with you then.